Hey there, this is the One Boom, and before we get into today's topic, I would like to give you some wardrobe advice. There's a website called intotheam.com where you can get well-fitted, soft, comfortable graphic t-shirts like the one I'm wearing here. They have shirts of all sorts of different designs. They have hoodies, they have underwear, they have sweatpants, they have face masks. They have lots of stuff for you to sink your teeth into and to open your wallet for. But it's not gonna matter, for me at least, unless you use code ONEBOOM10. And I'm happy to promote this. Not just because I have a discount code, not just because they send me awesome shirts. These are conversation starters. More and more people are pointing out to me in public, hey, that's a great shirt. And then I say, yeah, I'm sponsored by the company. They go, yeah, that's awesome. And then I say, yeah, you can use code ONEBOOM10. And then that's about as far as I get into the spiel before they lose interest and walk away. But it's fine. They are conversation starters. You just can't use those conversations as an opening to promote your discount code. Live and learn. Either way, head on over to intotheam.com and score yourself some sexy clothing like what I'm wearing here. And I don't know, everyone's different when it comes to clothing. The only thing I'm confident in saying is that my shirt that I'm wearing right now looks better than the one you're wearing while you watch this video. Enjoy the video. So there's been a lot of talk about how the attachments in Modern Warfare 2 are seemingly bad. They're always hurting your aiming stability, your recoil control, your aim down sight speed, your sprint to fire speed. There's more cons than pros, it seems. There are apparently some people saying that you should just not use any attachments, or you should only use one attachment on your weapon, and that in general, people sort of have this one step forward, two steps back mentality whenever they're building their weapon. Now, there are some solutions to this. It might feel wrong to leave attachment slots open when building your weapon, but so many attachments in Modern Warfare 2 have multiple important cons that have to be considered, because when you start stacking those, it'll make you feel like you're just better off not using any attachments at all. Like I said, some people have been going as far to say that naked guns perform better, which is of course wrong, but loading up on 5 attachments every time isn't always the right answer either. So how can we combat this? First thing you want to do is scout the gunsmith for attachments that have next to 0 cons, or at least 0 cons that affect the build you're looking to create. Like, you might not care about sprint to fire speed if you're making a more, campy long-range rifle, something along those lines, but for the most part, you want to prioritize in the gunsmith as you're leveling up, going for the attachments that have no cons or only 1 menial con. There are some underbarrel attachments as well as laser sights and some optics that either have no cons or such minimal cons they don't matter, so work hard to unlock those as soon as possible. One thing that Infinity Ward definitely needs to do to this game is remove any downside from using a red dot sight, or in my opinion, even a holographic sight. Balancing out weapons to a neutral or negative state makes customizing feel like a chore, and it never feels like you can really get ahead. You have 1 step forward, 2 steps back, constantly. It's hard to build weapons for aim down sight speed, stability, recoil control, or otherwise in the game's current state. So I recommend this. When you're building your weapon and you're gonna use all 5 attachments, use only 1 attachment that has 4 or more pros and cons. There are stocks and barrels that will have 4 different pros and 3 different cons, or 4 different cons and 3 different pros. Try only using 1 attachment that has that many modifiers to it. Then your next 2 attachments should have 2 or less cons. I don't know how many pros they're gonna have, but try to make sure they don't have more than 2 cons. And then your last 2 attachments should have 1 or no cons. What I'm saying is don't stack a bunch of stuff that hurts your bullet velocity, your aim down sight speed, your sprint to fire speed. Don't wreck your aiming stability and just not be able to land first shot on target because your gun's wobbling all over the place. Try only running 1 attachment that has 4 or more pros and cons, 2 attachments with 2 or less cons, and 2 more attachments with 1 or no cons. We have a firing range, and even though it's a really shitty firing range that I need to complain about because it's the most bare bones thing I've ever seen, after you add every attachment, especially those attachments that have lots of variables to them, go into the firing range and test it out. And once you get the gun feeling good, don't feel like you need to put on 1 more attachment, especially if you don't have any attachments that aren't going to add more pros and cons that you maybe don't need. Of course, pros are always good to have, but the cons are what we're really worried about here. I'm not really okay with the problem Infinity Ward has created here, but I am interested in showing you guys how to get past it a little bit better. Like here on my M4, I might want to use this fatter suppressor that helps with recoil control, the Broadhead 3DP, but it hurts my aim down sight speed and my damage range and my aim walking speed and my aiming stability, and then if I combine that with the wrong stock, I could really be hampering my aiming stability. And maybe the recoil control that I gain from that suppressor is going to be diminished by the other stock that I'm picking. So putting on a really heavy suppressor and a really lightweight stock to try to balance out the recoil control, but just overall screws up my aiming stability, and I'm really still not aiming down sight that fast because of that giant suppressor, it's not worth it. I've brought the gun to a more neutral state or a barely noticeable upgrade, and well, let's avoid that. Obviously, certain guns are going to require more love in certain areas. Some guns need more aiming stability because of the types of weapons they are. Some guns might need more sprint to fire speed, aim down sight speed, maybe more hip fire control. It depends on your playstyle. Obviously, this isn't a set rule I'm laying out for you guys here. Do this, don't do that. It's not really what I'm saying. What I am saying is that you should be mindful of how many cons you're stacking. Some guns don't need that many crazy 6 different pro and con attachments. You don't want to stack 20 variables on your gun if you don't have to. If you can use a suppressor that only hurts your damage range, and a rear grip that only hurts your aiming stability, and then throw on a laser sight that helps your aiming stability, and then maybe a foregrip that helps with recoil control and aiming stability, you'll be better off than if you were to put on a stock that drastically changes the feel of the gun, and a suppressor that has 6 different modifiers to it or 7 different modifiers to it. You don't want to complicate the system. And don't salt your soup before you taste it. Go into the firing range and fire at the wall. Do wall tests, just tap fire at the dummies. Your M4 might not need that much recoil control or that much bullet velocity. Or maybe, depending on your playstyle, you don't really need to be worrying about some of the cons. But I think the big issue people have with this gunsmith is that they're going into it expecting it to just be simple. I put attachments on, I get the attachments, great. But it's not that simple. This is a pretty complicated gunsmith, all things considered, and even though currently attachment tuning is disabled, when that comes back, it's further going to complicate things. I know Infinity Ward needs to do changes to some of these attachments. I know that in general, across the board, aiming stability should be increased by like 20% on every gun. Every gun is way too wobbly and wiggly in my opinion. I think the only guns that should be that wobbly and wiggly are maybe pistols and SMGs, but even guns that have 3 different aiming stability attachments on them still end up giving me a headache with how much idle sway there is. But this doesn't mean I have to be an idiot when building my class. Just because I want the game to be a little bit different doesn't mean I can expect for it to be as different as I'd like it to be, and so I might as well just sort of embrace the messiness of the gunsmith and take a less is more approach and just be mindful of my pros and cons. Unfortunately, we don't have detailed stats, but fortunately we do have a firing range that's very convenient to load into. So take a deep breath, stop blaming all the attachments, and ask yourself, what does your gun really need? And ask yourself, what do you really want to do with it? If you don't have a playstyle in mind, if you don't know what attachments should be used on what maps, that is a game sense issue, that's a skill issue, that is a tactic issue, not an issue inherently with the attachments. Like, take this M4 I have on screen for instance. This is not going to be the way it looks every match I'm in. These attachments are going to get rearranged and screwed with depending on the game mode and map that I'm on, depending on what playstyle I'm trying to adopt for myself. So test your weapons, adapt them to the map you're on, and pay close attention to your pros and cons while taking a less is more approach. The world isn't going to end if you have an empty attachment slot on your gun, trust me. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if it helped you out or changed your mentality in any way. If I got something blatantly wrong, don't tell me, it hurts my feelings. Hit the bell icon to get notified when I go live, and I'll see you when I see you.